Hi, I'm Carol DeVargas with the Divine Balance Counseling Services, and this will be one of my first videos besides my introduction video. And the first video that I want to do is on grief. And it's just simply because there's been a lot of grief going on around me and even within my own life. And a lot of people struggle and they don't know how to get through this process. And there's 7 stages of grief that I want to share with you. They're very basic. Once I share them with you, you'll definitely be able to relate if you're struggling with grief. If it's not you struggling with grief and someone you know is struggling with, this is definitely information that you could share with them. Now, it's important to understand that grief isn't always just death. Although the grief that I've been experiencing in the last couple weeks and the grief that has really been happening around me with others has been death related. So it's a good opening to talk about grief in general, but grief could also be the loss of anything. It could be the loss of a relationship. It could be the loss of money. It could be the loss of a job. It could be, of course, the loss of a pet. Sometimes people grieve stuff they've never had. If there was an absent parent, that also qualifies as grief. If there's a big move or a big change in life, there's a lot of things that just aren't there anymore that used to be there. And then a lot of things that were never there. So grief is a very healthy, natural emotion to have. We definitely need to have that. It's also very spiritual, also biblical to grieve. It's very important that we engage into this process. And knowing the stages of grief helps us do that in a very healthy way. So I'm going to share with you the stages of grief and then talk a little bit about each one. And I hope that this will help anybody out there that might be struggling a little bit. So the stages of grief, they start with shock or disbelief, denial, anger, bargaining, guilt, depression, and then there's the acceptance and the hope. These stages don't always go in order. We may go through one stage and make it through and make it into another stage and then go back into another one. So, the very first stage is shock or disbelief. Also, it kind of falls into denial. So, an example of that would be you get the phone call. So-and-so passed away. Our first response is usually, no, that's not true. That can't be right. And that would be the shock, the disbelief, and even the denial. The denial can go on for a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And that's okay. That's normal. We might think we see that person out in public somewhere or something like that. The denial is just, where you're stuck in awe. You just can't believe it. It's just unreal. And you can't comprehend how you can go on and function without this person or this thing that you have lost. It is important to go through this stage. It is important not to stay stuck in this stage. So if you have experienced some grief and you're still in denial and it's been a few months and you can't move forward, this might be a starting point for you. And if you're not sure how to get out of denial, there's a lot of help out there. There's counselors out there. If you go to my website, there's free support. I also do counseling myself. And sometimes it's just talking through the stuff and recognizing where we're at and recognizing where we need to go that is actually helpful in the growth process. So the next stage is anger. So anger is a secondary emotion to fear. So we're experiencing that anger, the fear of moving on in life without something that we've had for a while, something that we were attached to. And we're just mad. We're mad at life. We're mad at people. Some people get mad at God. We're angry, and that's normal. That's healthy. But again, we should not stay stuck in the anger phase. If we stay stuck in the anger phase too long, people aren't going to want to stick around. People are not going to want to hang out and be treated badly, even though they understand that we're grieving. People do have the right to set their boundaries and not be around us. So again, if you feel like you're stuck in that anger stage and you just can't get through it, recognize that so that you can move on and move out of that. You could go back into denial, or you can move forward into the bargaining stage. Bargaining is very common. I'm sure you can relate if you've grieved before, if you're still grieving, if you're in the beginning of grieving. I should have done this. If I had done this differently, and why didn't I do that? And we want to try to put it on ourselves, which then causes the next stage, which is guilt. Now, with the bargaining and the guilt, we have to understand that we're not that powerful, that we're not in that much control, especially when it comes to life and death. If you picked up the knife and you stabbed the person, then yeah, you probably should have some guilt that you have to work on. But in general, with the loss of things, that's just the process of life happening. And we are a part of that. And once we realize that it's out of our hands and that we have nothing to do with the situation, then we can start moving on from the bargaining and the guilt. I recently had someone very, very close to me pass away, and guilt was probably my biggest struggle with the whole situation. I felt that I could have done more. I felt that I should have done more, but I really did have to realize that, she was going to pass away. She was going to pass away anyways, and I'm not that powerful, and I don't have that much control over life and death. That's been going on way before I got here. So then we kind of go into the next stage, which is depression. So, depression is hopelessness, and sometimes we have such a close loss that we just don't see any other way, and we just feel like sleeping. We can't eat. Maybe we're not showering. And, I can say a little bit of depression is okay. We should lay down. We should cry. We should kind of check out for a second, but I would never say more than a couple days. If you find that you are depressed and it's severe and it's going on for more than a couple weeks, definitely reach out and get some help from somebody that can get unhealthy. But for a couple days, you know what? Lay down, cry. Don't go brush your teeth for a day. Don't take a shower. You'll be all right. You definitely want to hydrate and make sure you continue to eat. Don't starve to death, but definitely allow yourself to feel that. It's healthy. It's normal. We have to feel these stages in order to get through this. And then the final stage, once we know that we are through the grief process, and that doesn't mean we've forgotten about our loss. That doesn't mean that, we're back to the way we were, because honestly, when we deal with grief, we will never be the same again. And a lot of people, all they want to do is go back to the way it was before. And that's just an unrealistic expectation. It's never going to be the same again. And that's okay. That doesn't mean it's always going to be bad. It just means it's going to be different. And once we accept that, and once we realize that our loss, has happened and that now life is different, and we realize that we can actually move on, and maybe we can use our experience to help others. Maybe we can use our experience to be a better, bigger, different person. If it's the loss of someone close, we want to glorify that person. Most of the time, our deceased family members or friends, they don't want us stuck in depression and guilt and anger and denial and all that. They want us to move on and be happy and be productive in our lives. So acceptance and hope is the goal of the stages of grief. We can definitely get some acceptance and some hope and fall back into the other stages. That's absolutely normal. Some people, they grieve for a few months. Some people grieve for a year or two. I think the big thing about grief is that we don't stay stuck in one stage of grief. If you have any comments or anything you would like to add to this, if anybody out there has any experience with grief that they would like to share, maybe there was something I didn't touch on, definitely share in the comments. And if you have any questions, you can definitely ask anything in the comments. You can also visit my website at www.adivinebalance.com. That's ADEVINE balance.com. Thank you for watching my video. I hope this was helpful for you, and I will be doing another video soon. Thank you.